The MCU has existed long enough that some conversations have been had over and over again, to the point that certain ideas and criticisms are just accepted as common knowledge in fan circles. It's important, however, to remember that the MCU is currently an 18-film empire with an additional 16 seasons of 10 TV shows, with much more to come spanned across an entire decade. So some of the conventional wisdom is really just outdated conversations that have passed their expiration date. In this video, we're going to list the MCU conversations that need to die.
I have no plans to die today.
Number one on our list is a two-word phrase that most MCU fans will be totally sick of. Villain problem. The logic behind this complaint is simple enough. Early on in the MCU, the villains tended to be shallow reflections of their heroic counterpart. The problem didn't get much better through much of the second phase of the films, despite the promise of some higher-profile actors in villainous roles. Recent history demands this idea be revisited. In Phase 3 alone, Marvel has given us a brilliant schemer in Zemo, who rips apart the heart of the Avengers without any physical confrontation. Ego the Living Planet, who is both Quill's lovable, funny dad while also being the heartless murderer of his mother. Vulture, who had the most understandable motivations of any MCU villain, while also giving the most terrifying scene in the car on the way to prom. And now Killmonger, a socially important villain with deep pain, a great plan, and sheer charisma. Doctor Strange is arguably the only film with the old Marvel copycat villain in Caecilius, but Dormammu's confrontation with Strange is one of the most original and entertaining third acts in all of the MCU. And even earlier films like Thor, Avengers, and Winter Soldier had solid turns from Tom Hiddleston and Robert Redford. So at this point, a solid half of the MCU films have had great villains.
Take this time to explain my evil plan.
Next up, Marvel should never make origin movies anymore. This conversation is a bit out of date for two reasons. The first is that Marvel has already cut back on a lot of the pure origin movies. Both Spider-Man Homecoming and Black Panther were franchise starters, but the characters were first introduced in Captain America Civil War. A similar trick seems to be happening on the cosmic side, with James Gunn's much-anticipated Ravager spin-off having the team introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 2. Some exceptions, like Captain Marvel and Doctor Strange, still exist, but they are getting rare. The second reason to let that complaint die is that Marvel is really good at origin stories. As predictable as Ant-Man or Doctor Strange were at moments, they were both fun films. And with movies like Doctor Strange and Black Panther introducing not only a character, but a whole new corner of the universe, the origin stories are fine. Plenty of other cinematic universes are failing, largely because they've refused to do the hard work of properly introducing their characters. Instead of doing good origin films, they've raced into team-ups and sequel setups that just don't click because we don't know the characters.
Who are you?
The third MCU conversation that needs to die is the MCU is getting too complicated for newcomers conversation. Understandably, there have been concerns that one simply can't build a universe over a course of 18 interconnected films and not create some complications. How could a new fan possibly hope to jump on board to a decade-long story? The remedy to this concern connects back to the previous concern about origin movies. Marvel Studios has been smart to start new franchises as things have progressed. And generally, these new franchises feel like standalone films, at least in the case of the first of a series. So Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Black Panther are all relatively self-contained stories. Even Thor Ragnarok was relatively standalone in its storytelling. Simply put, the MCU is still gaining new fans. Black Panther was particularly strong with new audiences. Marvel Studios is aware of the concern and are making strong efforts to make approachable films. There's just no reason to worry that they'll suddenly stop doing this. Next on our list is a relatively young conversation that is already exhausting. If and when Marvel finishes their deal with Fox, the MCU will kill the Deadpool franchise by making it family-friendly. There are so many data points that suggest this is simply not true. Marvel Studios is a separate entity under Disney without the classic castle fronting their films. There is no reason to believe Disney wouldn't allow an R-rated Marvel film since they have been making R-rated films for decades under the TOUCHSTONE Pictures brand. It's also hard to believe that Disney had strict rules against violence after the car door decapitation of Daredevil or the cadaver into the trash disposal in Jessica Jones. On an even simpler level, after allowing James Gunn, Scott Derrickson, Ryan Coogler, and Taika Waititi to go full bore into some creatively risky decisions with their films, why would they suddenly move to handcuffing a property that's already proven itself successful? The cherry on the top of the sundae here is the fact that Bob Iger and Kevin Feige have both said explicitly that Marvel Studios can make R-rated movies if they want to. There's no reason why this conversation should have even started, and it's time for it to die. Let's talk about another conversation that has outlived its truthfulness. The Netflix universe is so much more grounded and realistic than the MCU. Now, it is true that the Netflix shows are more likely to show violence, sexuality, or include some four-letter words.
Oh, fuck. Come on, try.
And Daredevil did kick things off with a street-level focus. But slowly and surely, Netflix has added more fantastic elements. The films are still the only part of the MCU where death is permanent, after the Hand started resurrecting people left and right in their mystical blood sarcophagus. And ultimately, all of the Defenders series led up to a giant fight at the foundations of New York City, where dragon bones from primordial time were hiding behind a wall that could only be opened by the chi-enhanced punch of the protector of the mystical city of Kunlun. Even Luke Cage's solo series had some Frankenstein-style science experiment hijinks. So next time you start to say, that's too fantastic to happen on a Netflix show, pause a second and think about it.
But I'm Danny Rand, and I'm the Iron Fist.
Maybe you've had that moment where you ask someone if they've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. lately, and they respond, I gave up on that show because it's so bad. Marvel TV did ruin a great opportunity with the lackluster first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They had a massive audience hungry for a Marvel show, and after the runaway success of Avengers, fans were screaming Coulson lives. Sadly, millions of viewers left the show before it hit its stride. While taste is always subjective, it's nearly unanimous among those who have stuck around with the show that it's been getting better over time. The pod structure of Season 4 kept the storylines a lot tighter, and now the show has gone full-on high concept, with aliens, time travel, alternative realities, and more. As the plots have gotten more complex, the acting has lifted. The show is also a great incubator for young directing talent within the universe. Critics have taken note, and now S.H.I.E.L.D. has the highest aggregated rating of any MCU show on Rotten Tomatoes. If you haven't watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. since Daisy was Sky, then it's time to rethink its value. Our final conversation that needs to die combines TV and film worlds. Well, actually, that's the problem. Fans need to give up on the TV shows crossing over into the films. Years ago, the promise of it's all connected seemed so thrilling, but over time, it's just not happened. Some of the problems seem to lie in shooting schedules. Other reasons for the division may lie in the relationship or lack thereof between those at Marvel in the film division and those in the TV division. Whatever the ultimate case, it's time to let it go. Once one gets past the disappointment, there is a silver lining in accepting the reality. More recent shows like Punisher and Runaways have shown that the TV side benefits from being more focused. Instead of shoehorning in Avengers references, the shows have the freedom to work their own plots.
So go after the big green guy at the flag waver. I wasn't even there.
Even if Feige was considering adding the TV characters in, the Russo brothers have such a huge challenge in front of them, trying to meaningfully include so many film characters. Forcing in Daredevil or Quake might just make the product worse, not better. What do you think of our list? Did we miss a conversation that you're tired of? Do you think that we've overstated our case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the Marvel News Desk YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. Also, you can support Marvel News Desk and help guarantee more great content like this by chipping in $1 over at www.patreon.com/MarvelNewsDesk. Thanks for watching!